Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. And what has happened in the last couple of days? Can you believe it? I just can't believe what has been going on. Just amazing, absolutely amazing. I have never gotten more emails than I am getting now, and I have to. I have another tech problem. I'm away from home. I'm not sure what happened. Hang on just a second here. Something strange. It's like the computer's been taken over. This happened a couple of weeks ago too. I have no idea why these things are opening, and it has to be just a bizarre situation why these things would open. But anyway, I'm so excited because we have just the right person here on the show to talk about it. We have Ralph Blumenthal. Before I get into that quickly, I want to talk about our blog this week. And it's called UFOs Science and Controversy at the University of Colorado. And so check that out. It's over another great blog by Ralph. I'm sorry, by, boy, I'm having a tough start, by Charles Lear. So check that out. And we have Ralph coming up. And I'm getting all mixed up, Ralph. You got to bail me out here.
It's the aliens. It's the aliens.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had this happen a couple of weeks ago. Something just started playing on my computer. Now, this was like a music file just decided to pop up and start playing. I have no idea why. But you can't hear it over the radio, but I certainly can hear it. Anyway, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for and this short notice. But wow, amazing last 48 hours, huh? A lot's happened.
A busy week, yep.
And you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but, 60 Minutes goes on and, my email, everything lights up, text, you name it. And I'm sure that's happening to you because a lot of what they covered in the 60 Minutes is something that you covered 4 years ago, basically. I mean, there was a lot of repeat, but it's a vast audience. And there's a lot of changes happening. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's moved a lot since 2017 when we broke the story of the secret Pentagon unit investigating, UFOs, UAPs, whatever they want to call them now. So 60 Minutes, brought it to the fore again with somebody we interviewed a little bit after that, Ryan Graves, a fighter pilot, with some new information. But it's catching on, no doubt about it.
I think one of the, to me, kind of the most profound statement that was made in that whole interview was with him when he said these things were happening on a daily basis. Now, he may have mentioned that before, but it really hit. Did he talk about that before?
Well, we were talking about incidents on the Nimitz in 2004. And they were happening a lot then. I think this, and they continued and are continuing. So he kind of brought it up to date. But it was really, more of what he had told us originally, that these things were common on the, seen from the Nimitz, that they were sent up to investigate. They happened again with the Roosevelt in 2014, 2015. So it's really an update of what had been happening then and continues to happen.
That's right. That's right. And in the whole world, it seems to be a buzz. I would like to read you this comment from one of my longtime listeners, because it's not the only comment that I've received similar to this. So here it goes. She wants to remain anonymous. I write you out of frustration and astonishment regarding the amount of hatred toward Lou Elizondo, Leslie Kean, and ATIP. This week is historic for removing the stigma surrounding UFOs. Never in my lifetime has mainstream media taken this phenomenon so seriously, but here it is, a form of disclosure covered in 60 Minutes. Ezra Klein's op-ed in the New York Times, the New Yorker, Morning Joe, Kumo Primetime, to name a few. And so I go over to UFO updates on Facebook, expecting folks to share their excitement regarding coverage, but I find all their grievances, conspiracy theories to debunk other conspiracy theories, and 50 comments stating that there is no evidence that Lou Elizondo was head of ATIP. Never I've seen a group of people handed what they wanted for so long for UFOs to be taken seriously, and then griping about the messengers. I'm truly godsmacked. And thank you for your show. I hope you might say a good word in this historic week. For one, I'm thinking about all the people who saw something they didn't understand in the skies, but they could finally share their fear without fear of ridicule. So what do you think of that statement? I've seen this in the UFO community a lot. Okay, Ralph, it's your turn. You froze. There you just froze. Sorry, you're back. Okay.
I'm back. It is familiar to me because when Leslie Kane and I were writing our most recent stories, we got a lot of negative comment on the internet, not from serious people, but from people who like to hash these things over, and conspiracy theorists who wondered why we weren't writing this and not that. There was a lot of speculation of what we were trying to put out in the New York Times before we were ever writing it. It's a very incestuous community. It's the Wild West, as we know. We just, stuck to the facts, the story. We continue to report it, but there's a lot of negative, vibes out there. So I'm not terribly surprised. There was a lot of speculation that Lou Elizondo wasn't who he seemed to be, that he never, headed ATIP. It's all nonsense. We confirmed it. We put that in the New York Times. We saw the documentation. We know exactly what his leadership role was at ATIP. We never would have put out the stories we put out starting in 2017 if we hadn't, fully documented his history. So there are people out there who love to, make trouble and to, foment insurrection, whatever. But we stick to the facts, and our facts have not been questioned.
Right. And, I try to figure it out. I personally am not that big on social media. I kind of went off of it almost completely like a year ago, but I still have my show active, on Facebook and Twitter, things like that. But I try to stay away from that sideline of buzz because if I get involved in some of those discussions, I start getting anxiety, and I just don't want to be bothered with some of the negativity. I'm not saying it's all negative. There's some really positive things too, but and I'm glad you say that you're sticking to the facts, because I think really when it comes down to it, yes, the Pentagon did say that, there was, and they're known for doing this type of thing. They did kind of deflect it by saying, no, he wasn't part of this. But later it was confirmed by, I believe even Harry Reid, confirmed it.
Martin, I wrote a book on John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist who investigated alien abduction. And he dealt with this. There's the book. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alien Encounters, Hard Science, and the Passion of John Mack, a believer. He dealt with this. He was, looking to understand these stories of people, ordinary people with the most stupefying accounts of alien interactions. He never got to the bottom of it. We may or may never get to the bottom of it. But he proceeded very methodically into checking out their stories, listening to them. They were not publicity seekers. They were not deranged. They were children as young as 2 years old telling these stories. So they were not, echoing books they had read or movies they'd seen. So this is not unfamiliar to me. I've seen this happen, with other stories I've covered for the New York Times, and certainly the story of John Mack. So there's some people who need to, constantly raise questions, foment things. But as I say, we stuck to the facts. We documented everything we said in the New York Times was attributed. There were no anonymous sources. And I was glad to see that 60 Minutes picked up the account of Ryan Graves and Dave Fravor, pilots who we'd interviewed and, told their stories in the New York Times. So, you can't get distracted by what's going on, in the internet, the chatter I don't know what some people have as a, ruling emotion, whatever, but we just stick to the facts.
Right. I thought that was great that Alex, the lady pilot, decided to finally, come forward. I had heard her first name only, and I was thrilled to see that she actually felt comfortable.
Alex Dietrich, yeah. The wingwoman,
yeah,
Dave Fravor. And she confirmed his account that they had seen something entering or exiting the water, which is extraordinary because these things don't operate only in the skies. They seem to operate underwater. They have a multi-dimensional media capability. So,
Yeah.
and she confirmed that. So that's interesting. What nobody knows, of course, is what these things are. But at least we've gotten to the point where we are acknowledging their physical reality. And the Pentagon, more important than we, the government, the Pentagon, is acknowledging that these things exist in reality. They have a physicality that was not acknowledged before. That people were saying, well, they're spiritual constructs, they're archetypes, they're imagined objects, whatever. Now we know from the thermal imaging devices and the radar and the personal testimony of pilots like Dave Fravor and Alex Dietrich that these things are real.
Yeah, totally amazing. And so someone had a question that they wanted. Yeah, I just had the music start to play on my computer again. I have no idea what's going on. So a question that popped up here, going back to the John Mack book, what was your biggest takeaway from your experience writing on the book of John Mack? Might as well ask that since we talked about your book a minute ago.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that as outlandish as these stories seem to be of people, normal people encountering alien beings and being beamed up to their spacecraft for, hybrid breeding and all these stories that are these people told either both consciously and in hypnotic regression, but also consciously. It's important to remember these were not suggestions planted by hypnotists. These are things that to some extent they remembered. And it happened to them, not only at night in their bedrooms in so-called dreams, but driving their cars. In one case, a woman driving a snowmobile, people walking, by themselves with others. So the extraordinary thing was that these stories had a consistency and yet different details that made them more credible in a way, that they were not reading off some script, these people. And John Mack just followed the trail of evidence. He said it's the kind of evidence that gets people convicted in court and executed. It's anecdotal. There is no proof, that we can come up with. There's no ashtray from a UFO. There's no video of alien abductions. And yet these accounts are so persistent and told with such suitable affect. People crying and they're weeping and they're cursing as they're recounting their experiences, with these alien beings. So Mack found them credible enough to put in 2 books he wrote, and that's my takeaway. That there's something there. It's interesting. We don't know what it is. Just it hasn't reached the level of confirmation that we have with UFOs. That's for sure. But there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't understand.
That's right. And if anyone's watching this and you missed the show that Ralph and I did together about his book and John Mack, you can go back on several, I don't know how many episodes ago. I think it was like 4, maybe 5 episodes ago. You can check that out. Just one more Mack question. I want to get back quickly to the after this to what we're talking about. Will your work on Mack lead you? Where will that lead you for upcoming work, or is it going to?
There is no answer, as I say at the end of the book. We don't know, how to explain these amazing stories that are so real to the people who experience them. So I'm continuing to look into them. I've talked to some experiences just a few minutes ago. I was on the phone with one of the experiences who had a very interesting story. So there's a lot more to write about. I'm looking into it. I don't know, where it will lead. As I say, I don't think we're going to solve that problem in the next few minutes or few hours or few years, but it is certainly intriguing. And the number of people coming forward who have already come forward and continue to come forward with these stories and have these encounters is extraordinary. So it's a constant obsession of mine now, as it was for John Mack. Before he was run over in London and killed by a drunk driver, he was fascinated to get to, and he was courageous enough to risk a professorship at Harvard and a career in psychiatry to continue to ask these questions. And he was investigated by Harvard, and they basically said there was no reason to discipline him in the end. It is an ongoing mystery.
Right. Getting back to the 60 Minutes, here's a question that came in, and I'm not sure if you even know this. I know you are not working at the New York Times. You have done articles, and you were, but the question is, what was or is the buzz on the current UAP events with insiders of the New York Times? Do you happen to know any of that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not on the staff anymore. I left the staff in 2009. I continue to contribute articles, not just on UFOs, but other subjects. So I don't know, what the buzz is at the New York Times, but we're very interested. Everyone at the New York Times, like other mainstream media and news outlets over the world, are very interested in what's going on. There is a report being prepared by the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force,
right.
which is the successor to ATIP, that is due next month. I think it may be delayed because there's so much left to investigate. And, I don't know how much will be classified, how much will be open to the public. So there's a lot of speculation, including on the 60 Minutes broadcast, about this report and anticipation of it, which is, has to be delivered to Congress at some point. But I think it would be very possible, even likely, for them to say, we're not quite ready by the 6-month deadline since the Defense Authorization Act was passed in December, that we need a little more time. And the Congress always, gives extra time for things like that. So I wouldn't set my watch to next month's report.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that a couple of times on this show, that's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be extended. But how do you think the 60 Minutes episode on the UAP, do you think that is going to cause more pressure for constituents of some of these people involved in the research to get in touch with them and say, hey, we watched 60 Minutes and we saw Marco Rubio and all that. What's going on? Do you think that's going to have an impact in any type of way?
Well, Harry Reid and members of Congress, Harry Reid was majority leader, Democratic majority leader for many years, have often said that there needs to be more courage in Congress to step up and examine these issues. There's very few people who have, been coming out forward. Marco Rubio is one, but really very few people have made public comments on this, which is quite striking because members of Congress are not known for their shyness and reticence. But this is one issue that really has them, muffled. The ridicule factor is still strong out there. But again, increasingly, the Navy has stepped up and said, we want our people to come forward and report these observations, these sightings. This is something new, actually, since the New York Times article came out in 2017.
Right.
That ice has been broken, and whereas in the past it was kind of a career ender to admit that you, as a sailor or jet pilot, saw some of these anomalous things. Now the Navy is saying we want to collect this information. So that's a big breakthrough. But members of Congress have not been notably forthcoming on this. I think they don't see it as necessarily a career advancer. It won't help them when they run for election and their opponent, points them out and ridicules them. So they need to be a little more forthcoming and to just ask the questions. Nobody has the answers, but ask the questions. What information has been collected already by the government, by the Pentagon, and what still remains to be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kind of along those lines, and I believe is, in your last or one of your last articles, the question up here, is there any follow-up at all on the metamaterial from the New York Times article?
Yeah, that's a very difficult area of reportage because it's highly classified. We wrote about as much as we could, And, you talk about the chatter on the internet. We were the subject of a lot of speculation. The New York Times, Leslie Kean and I, a lot of speculation. Why isn't the Times reporting this? And why don't they say this? And we report as much as we can confirm and we can put on the record from people who are willing to have their names attached to a story. We're not going to report anonymous stuff, rumors or speculation, which you can do easily on the internet, but we don't do it in the New York Times. So we haven't done it in the other UFO stories. We really stuck to what we can, attribute to people with knowledge. So we reported as much as we could that members of Congress and congressional committees were briefed on some reported recoveries of materials, possible crash recoveries. We reported that. The materials were being analyzed according to the briefings to congressional committees. More than that, we don't know to the point where we can say it in the paper. So stay tuned. I mean, it's obviously a matter of great interest. It's at the cutting edge of the story. But we're not going to go off and speculate and spout off on rumors.
Right. Yeah. Someone just wrote about the internet, about the rumors that are going around. I haven't looked into them myself too much, but one of the questions that comes up a lot when people will email me and say, "Hey, look, I just saw this or whatever, and listened to one of your shows," and a lot of new people are listening, but they ask me, are there more videos? Do you think the videos, and I forgot I had Lou Elizondo on last week. I forgot to ask him his opinion of the videos out there. Do you think we will actually have more released? Or do you think, any part of this would be subject to something that the task force might eventually, be involved in releasing?
I mean, we at the New York Times put out 3 Navy videos, which are still getting tremendous exposure, even on 60 Minutes. That's all they show, these Navy videos. Now, several more have come out more recently. So there are definitely more videos, no doubt about it. And there are longer segments of the videos than what we were able to put out. They're much longer and more detailed and more complete. So, but I don't know how many are classified, but they're certainly not in the public domain as the ones we were able to put out on the New York Times web. So there are definitely more videos. I'm sure they're very interesting videos. The question is when the government will see fit to put them out. Will they be put out as part of the UAP report? That remains to be seen.
One of the things, even though I already knew this, but it still kind of hit me when I'm watching this 60-minute segment, is the fact that, Alex, the pilot, said, well, I can talk about this because it's not classified. And it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that's not classified. But it almost seems like, why wasn't that classified? I mean, it was such an extraordinary event. It just, in a way, it's kind of baffling why that was never classified.
Well, the better question, Martin, is why is so much classified? This is our taxpayer dollars going into.
That's true.
We pay for the training of these pilots. We pay for these, multi-million, billion-dollar ships and planes. So this is all collected on our money, and who is not entitled to this if not the American people? So you could say certain things need to be classified because we don't want our adversaries to know how advanced our technology is and what we know about this advanced technology. Let's say we're trying to reverse engineer some of these, UFOs or UAPs. How far have we gotten into, cloaking and, hypersonic speeds and, all these advanced technologies? That's a legitimate, perhaps, or almost certainly a legitimate area for classification. But what we have photographed and what we have, gotten on thermal imaging devices and radar, certainly more of that deserves to be made public.
Absolutely. Ralph, thank you so much. And again, check out his book. You probably have a copy right in front of you, don't you? You can put up or not. I have this one right here.
Shelf in the back. The Believer, Alien Encounters, Hard Science, and the Passion of John Mack, about a Harvard psychiatrist who was not afraid to ask the tough questions.
Excellent. Well, thanks again. As always, it's great talking to you, Ralph. Take care. And I'm sure you're going to be very busy in the next few days.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
All right. Take care. All right, everyone. So our guest is all the way from down under, and he's in the future. He's on. It's Wednesday morning in Australia. Welcome to the show, Damian.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, Damian. So I have seen a couple of movies that you were in, documentaries that you were in. How many are there that you're in? There's quite a few you're featured in, right? Australian Skies. What are some other ones?
There's Beyond the Spectrum, Fractured Realities, Part 1, 2, and 3. There's a couple Canadian ones coming out this year, an American one as well, and also Haunted Skies is coming up, which is one of my little personal babies been working on for a while now. So,
yeah. And let's for the person that doesn't know anything at all about you, you can look online, of course, and you happen to be one of these people that have filmed a bunch of things. And so why you? Why are you able to see all these things? And why do you suppose that you're able to, I don't know, I don't want to say summon these things, but you're not the only one that has said this. I heard you say that you have this feeling. And I've talked to other people that say exactly the same thing. They have this feeling, so they go outside, and sure enough, there's something there. So let's talk about how it all started and how this all happened.
yeah, sure. Well, for me, it started when I was 9 years old, 33 years ago. I witnessed a red ball of light that was following me on the way home on a Sunday. I'd just seen my friend and I was late home. So I just looked up and I just saw this red ball of light. Might have been maybe 15 feet, maybe 20 feet above me, probably the size of a basketball, maybe a little bit larger. And it was just a brilliant red color. I still remember it quite clearly. And after about a minute and a half of it following me, it seemed to be mimicking my movements almost, which was really strange. And even as a kid, I knew that wasn't normal, obviously. But I got home and I told my mom about it, and I was really excited. And she said, no, it was just an aeroplane. It was probably just an aeroplane straight away. So even from the age of 9, I started getting interested in the topic. And then when I was 12, I had a sighting of another red ball of light. And I was camping out with my stepbrothers at the time. And we were just looking up at the sky, and it was a hot summer night. And we're just in the backyard, basically. And a red light just started getting bigger and bigger. And it seemed to be dropping down from the sky almost. And then all of a sudden, a blue light's come in and started chasing the red light around the sky and doing all these maneuvers. And another yellowy green colored light came in and started doing the same thing. So these two colored lights were chasing this red ball of light all around the sky and doing all sorts and stopping and with no forward inertia, then going, a 90-degree left-hand turn or a right-hand turn or something, and then doing the same in this part of the sky, and went on for about a good 10, maybe 15 minutes. It was one of my longest sightings I've ever had in my life. And, my father witnessed it as well. We called him outside. I didn't even realize at the time. I just had my eyes peeled on the sky, but apparently he saw it too. And, my brothers saw it. And even to this day, we still talk about it every time we catch up. So, it was one of those things that really affected all of us. And but me, it set me on kind of a mission to find out what it was, and what I'd experienced the 3 years prior as well by myself. And so I started borrowing all the books I could in libraries, and from the school, and everything from friends, and anything about mysteries, and trying to find out what it was, and probably over my lifetime, I read most of the books that are out there, a good deal of them at least. And I'd probably had about maybe just 10 to 15 sightings over my entire lifetime up until 10 years ago, or 9 years ago now, back in 2012, when I moved up to the country here and started seeing these white balls of light hovering over people's homes and moving over them slowly and doing all sorts of absolutely incredible things in the sky, and similar things to what I'd seen over my lifetime a few times. And so I started getting some camera equipment together and trying to record what I was seeing, and so I could show people the evidence. And eventually I started getting a few captures and whatnot. But it started peaking at one point, and so I called the UFO group from Sydney, UFO Research New South Wales, and they sent investigators up, and all 8 investigators, they brought family up with them and everything, and they witnessed UFOs go over their house the very minute they rocked up into town here in the afternoon, still daytime, and witnessed a massive almost like a old school Hollywood flying saucer, except you couldn't see any dome or anything. Just it was covered in an orange glow, just slowly gliding over the house the second the lead investigator rocked up in town. So they were all blown away. And the following night, they witnessed UFOs as well that would stop when a torch was shown on them, and then the colors would disappear and it would just hang there in the sky. And and then Sun Herald journalists saw it as well, who were in town. And most of the people who came into town witnessed stuff. We had people coming from all around Australia then when they put that in the newspaper that they witnessed 2 UFOs above the property here. And so people coming from everywhere to see it. So over the last decade, I've invested in about 60 different cameras, trying to work out what looks like what are misidentifications, that kind of thing, trying to teach myself and learn about photography, basically a major crash course in photography. So
well, let's talk about some of the misidentifications. What are often that that you have figured out to be something like a weather balloon, let's just say? I'm not saying that, but I mean, have you figured out, oh, I see, this is something else on some of these films?
Yeah, there's weather balloons, there's planes at a distance leaving contrails, there's clouds even that can appear like, lenticular clouds, and others can appear like UFOs from a distance. There's contrails from a distance that can appear really strange. There's lens flares, there's birds, bugs, insects of all different types that fly through our sky, and then you've got your nighttime misidentifications. You've got your flash being used on your camera and people picking up bits of dust or pollen or moisture in the around and saying that they're UFOs or they're aliens or they're spiritual beings or they're dead family members or something. And in reality, people are just filming and photographing insects and bugs and stuff. A lot of people just will put the camera to the sky and take 3 or 4 photos in a row, and then one of those photos you'll see something little black and streaking across, and instantly, it's gotten a lot of people, and me at the start even as well. Like a decade ago, I was making mistakes, and that's why I was like, okay, you've got to learn from this. You need to and I notice a lot of people in the UFO field would present those types of things as evidence, as though they were special, or they were Jesus, or they were in contact with gods or aliens or this or that, and they'd present as evidence a bird flying across, and it's hardly evidence. It's it sort of puts a nail in the ufology coffin, so to speak, whenever this stuff sort of gets debunked. So I started up a website, and I decided to show all the different types of misidentifications, and I would go into different areas where there'd be heaps of dust or pollen or this or that, or I'd photograph birds flying on purpose, or I'd sit there and wait and patiently and try and photograph a fly or a bug or an insect, and just on multiple different cameras, so I could work out what they look like on different formats, different quality cameras, different price ranges, just to teach myself and hopefully to teach others as well. So that was the idea in the first place.
Yeah. I've seen some pictures of birds that, people snap and not even see the bird in there. And when you first look at it, it does look like almost like a saucer shape or something. I mean, it's just the angle and the way their wings are and the whole thing. If you snap it just right, it can fool you. And I understand,
the angles, it's all about the lighting, it's all about the shutter speed on the camera, the quality of the camera. It's a whole bunch of different factors. The sensor, it can add to that effect of it looking like a UFO. So, yeah.
What about like night vision? Do you ever take any like night vision films of something you see? And how does that come out?
Grainy a lot of the time. I mean, the more you zoom in on something, it depends on the type of night vision camera you're using, obviously, and the quality and how much you're willing to spend and everything. But I mean, we've been capturing some really good night vision footage here. I use an iGen 2020 myself, which is one of the only ones that can actually enable a video output, so you can make the actual, and it records to a SD card as well. but you can actually get better quality recording to an external output device and recording from that device. So it's pretty decent, you know. So anyone who's looking to get one, I get asked that a lot of the time. What's a great one, a good one to get? The iGen 2020. But we've been capturing stuff like UFOs coming down, changing angles from the sky from up high, changing angles, then stopping above a mountain range, and then flying at an even more solid, sharper angle down into the mountain and disappear completely. And I've got multiple bits of footage of this happening over a 9-month period now, which is really strange in this one area, which is in the town here, which is really bizarre. So yeah, it's a very strange town. Nothing you do. So
yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the town, just to let the YouTube person know that we're going to be playing a video in a minute, and Damien's going to more or less narrate what we're seeing. But and also, if you're listening to this as an audio podcast, we'll try to link that so you can see just that part of it in the show notes. So let's talk about the town. Why is it, you know, but you actually had sightings, a number of sightings before you moved there, which is kind of unusual. Then you moved to this town. So let's talk about it. Historically, were people talking about seeing things before you moved there?
a number of people actually have seen things here, but it's a very small town. There's about 750 people or something, so everybody knows everybody, and so it's not, UFOs are not exactly a subject, you know, that everyone wants to talk about openly around here. You don't want to be sort of as the crazy person. I don't care myself, but you know, I can understand why other people would. But yeah, no, a lot of people do under the table. They'll talk to you about what they've seen here in town, and a lot of people are seeing these orange balls of light, the white balls of light, and the red balls of light around the town here, and that's predominantly what's been seen. And also blue cigar kind of looking long elongated things, and white elongated looking things as well, like cigar shaped objects or type of UAP, whatever. So that's predominantly what we see. And also, but what I've noticed about this town, it has a very strange geological makeup. In the ground, there's a lot of quartz crystal, massive quartz crystal veins running through the entire town, right out to the farms on the outside of town out here. And also, it's one of the areas that also is heavy with ironstone. And I know that other areas in America that have iron ore and other types of crystals like wurtzite crystal, whatnot, quartz crystal, do also seem to have unusual activity in the area. And here we seem to have very unusual storm activity, storms that very rarely come into the town. They just sit on the one spot on the edge of town with dramatic lightning effects constantly, and they don't seem to move past. They just hit the one spot. And there's one place in Esperance here in Western Australia over here that has the same ironstone and the same quartz crystal content in the ground in this one place. And the same thing happens with storms over there as well. They seem to stop on the one area and constantly strike the ground where the ironstone and the quartz crystal are. So whether that has something to do with why a lot of people are seeing these strange lights or phenomenon here in the town here, who really knows? But it's a very strange. It's an interesting thing to look into because you know, I'm not a person who just thinks that these things are just coming here from another planet and just constantly coming backwards and forwards, taking a bit of soil, you know, abducting a human or doing it once every now and then. I think that they're here, they're around us, they're natural. You know, I call the phenomenon paranatural phenomenon myself, because I believe it's natural. I believe it's inherent to the universe. It's all around us, and possibly dark matter as well is possibly where these things are coming from, or possibly existing in other dimensions, or, you know, these are just human terms for these things, but they seem to be all coming from the same place, as well as paranormal phenomenon here on this earth as well. They seem to register on the same you know, they affect the Earth's magnetic field. They're visible to infrared and fully modified full spectrum cameras as well, where they can be naked to the human eye. They can't be seen. And also, you know, they seem to disappear and reappear in very similar ways as well. And there's associated with smells, high strangeness, you know, and I'm sure you're aware of John Keel and his work, you know, the Mothman
Yeah.
prophecies and all that stuff, and the high strangeness stuff that he got into. You know, I've experienced a lot of that weird stuff as well. As when you're getting a lot of action in the area, or you're having a bit of a hotspot occasion, you know, once every couple of months or whatever, it might go off for 2 or 3 days. You'll also be having, so when you're having action up in the sky, we'll also be having strange things happening in the house, electrical things happening, also, you know, weird things happening with mobile phones, weird things happening with communicating with people, with things flying off shelves, you know, things disappearing completely, then ending up in the weirdest places, and just some real strange things. Seeing my father as well has seen these things, these black things go behind me while we've been eating, you know, and we've also seen this white figure glide down the hallway like it's leaning forward and fly into my father's room. I mean, stuff like that is really crazy. And when I told my father that, he said, you know, thank you. Why is that? And he goes, because I saw that thing at the foot of my bed, something glowing, and it glided down the side of his bed and just stood there, and it was up off the floor apparently, and it was some kind of figure. I couldn't see a face or anything, but really strange things, you know, like that. So you know, an analogy I like to use, you know, if you're a UFO hunter and you see a ball of light, you know, floating around inside your home, you're likely to call it a ghost. If you're a farmer and you see a ball of light on your property, you're more than likely to call it a min light or a mystery light, like what you guys over in America will call them, like the Martha lights in Texas and other lights over there, other mystery lights. And if you're a ufologist and you see a ball of light in the sky, you're more than likely to call it a UFO. So, I mean, the same or similar kind of phenomenon is occurring in homes, on the land, in the oceans, and up above us and all around us. So I believe that it's inherent, it's natural, just because we can't see it. I believe that, yeah, it's around us at all times, and they're around us. Whatever they are, they can come in and out whenever they want. So.
Yeah, it's a mystery, you know, and times like this make you wonder, like all these different things that you're mentioning. And also, you know, we can only see in a certain spectrum. There's a lot of things we cannot see, and a lot of things around us we cannot sense in so many ways. But, you know, the new technology does change that a bit, you know, where we have ways of filming things and seeing things, you know. I mean, just for instance, you know, the night vision alone, you know, is pretty amazing. We would have never thought about that, you know, many years ago, that we'd be able to film anything like that. I'm going to run the video, and just to tell the listener, the video is basically of you taking pictures, but I'd like for you to just kind of let everyone know what we're seeing here. I'm going to start it right now. Here it goes.
Sure. These are just some photographs that have been taken. I just put them in a small compilation. This one here was an orange ball of light, and it was actually over Taree in New South Wales. When I moved away from the country here a decade ago, I went to this place, and it's another country place that a lot of people have seen strange lights and other phenomenon there.
So what we're looking at right now is several photographs, right? I mean, pictures that you took. This is not a video.
No, this is not it's actually made into a video, but it's 211 high-speed sequence photographs stitched together to basically make a movie. So at the time when I saw it the first time, I just started taking, normally I take photographs and a movie, but you don't know how long a UFO sighting is going to last. So I just continued taking photographs of it. I was lucky enough to be able to capture it in these 211 high quality photographs too. So when you actually zoom in on the photos, you can see smaller orange spheres of light dancing around this larger sphere, which is quite incredible. That was witnessed by 3 people.
This one almost looks like the Tic Tac UFO.
Yeah, a few people have said that. Yeah, it's kind of a Tic Tac thing. Yeah, I've seen them a few times around here, especially above that mountain range, which is really strange. And one of the infrared videos I have is one of those Tic Tac things diving into the mountain range without causing any disturbance whatsoever. A lot of these other captures, these photographs, are just ones of some of them are taken from video, some of them are just simple photographs, but most of them I have video of as well. Red balls of light, orange balls of light, with seemingly with fields around them, which is really strange. I'm lucky to have captured what I've captured here. You know, a lot of them seem to be quite shy, these UFOs. You know, as soon as they see you coming, they'll get ready to take off. A lot of them don't want you to film them, and some don't really seem to care too much. And yeah, it's really strange. We've
Was
had them near
that?
airplanes.
Yeah, I was just going to
Yeah.
say there's an airplane in the last shot that just was up there.
Yeah, yeah, that was another one where I got multiple dozens of photographs of this object with a plane flying straight by it, and the object just hovering perfectly still. Three balls of light stuck together, it seems. I've captured quite a few of them, so a lot of these are taken from video as well. There's a helicopter in that one which was circling this object, this ball of light that was bright as anything, and moving through the sky, doing really short maneuvers. But it was leaving like a kind of residue in the sky behind it. And I've seen this multiple times now before, and the residue dissipates quite quick, quite fast. So the whatever it is really strange. You know, we've seen them like shoot out small balls of almost like a what you think is a solid ball, but then it dissipates into the sky. Other videos I have of these white spherical balls. Some of them even look like footballs moving through the sky, with other smaller balls of light actually flying into them at high speeds, into the bigger balls of light. So that's really strange. So some of these are the orange ones. Some of these are these multicolored red things with very, very unusual captures. A lot of them I capture on the way to or from UFO conferences, where I talk at, or if I'm making a documentary and flying into the state or whatever. A lot of them seem to appear like when we're leaving home, or when we're getting back, or at the end of the conference or whatever. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of people at conferences see them with me. And sky watches and stuff like that I've put on in the past. But yeah, a lot of these objects are from Taree, Borkham Hills, Trangie, New South Wales, Dunedoo, New South Wales, Sydney, all over Sydney, Blacktown, and just ending here in a capture. This was the first UFO here that a friend of mine ever saw in his life, and he came up to hopefully see one with me, and you know, and he saw one, which was incredible. And these, you know, three green lights that were just sort of hanging there in the sky, and you know, spinning around slowly and all this sort of stuff. It's quite amazing. So I'm lucky at this point over the last decade, and I guess including family, I'm up to now just over 200 witnesses who've witnessed strange phenomenon. You know, I'm not saying what they are. I don't know what they are. You know, unlike a lot of people, the UFOs don't talk to me. So whether they don't like me or not, they don't tell me I come from Pleiades or the Orion or anything like that. You know, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I just call it as I see it, and trying to be as scientific or evidence based as I can without going down the rabbit hole too far. So you don't want to do that.
I don't know if this is down the rabbit hole for you, but someone wants to know: do you experience any synchronicities in your daily life? And the reason I posted that, because a lot of people who have sightings or a major sighting in their life seem to have these strange things happening. Do you have any other strange things happening in your life besides what you mentioned?
Yeah, my life is one big ball of strange. So everything about it, man. Just from the things that I see to behind the scenes, I've had a lot of the synchronicities, like seeing. I went through a stage where I was seeing the number 333 everywhere I went, and that sort of. I had to get that out of my head, because I'm like, no, it's conspiracy. No, I'm trying to concentrate on the real, you know, and photographing and videography and everything, and getting documentaries out there. But you know, when you have like strange things like that happen, you think, okay, well, is that for real, or is that what happened? What just happened? You know, like deja vus and all that. I get that a fair bit. I've had the sleep paralysis before. You know, so there's on a couple of occasions it was quite nasty. And you know, little things like that. I've seen what I thought were old. Like this one occasion especially, I saw an old man walking towards the front door, And as I was walking past the door, and I saw him through the fly screen, and I went to the kitchen, put a cup on the sink, turned around to go straight back to the door, and the old man who was near the front door walking up to it was completely gone. And that was within a 5-second period. And so I've gone out into the front yard, and I've looked into the neighbors' yards, and I've looked up and down the street for cars or anything, nothing, just completely dead. So this old man had completely disappeared. And that's happened a couple of times when I've seen someone and then look back and they're gone, or so weird things like that. I've seen since I was a kid, but I don't know if it has anything to do with this whole UFO thing or not. But I've for Haunted Skies, my documentary coming out, Mike Williams, who's a Fortiana investigator, sorry, Mike, here in Australia, he and an author as well, and on the big cat phenomenon, and in the Bigfoot and all that sort of stuff, and UFOs and high strangeness, and him and I have been working on Haunted Skies now for on and off for like 6 years at least. We've been getting into this, and then and it's about the connections between the different phenomena that people are experiencing, and it's going into my a lot of evidence that I've captured of both the phenomenon in the homes and also up in the sky as well. So I know that there is some sort of connection, and a lot of the points that I put across, maybe people say, oh, mate, it's just a coincidence, or is this or that? But once it gets beyond a few than a couple of coincidences, you start thinking, okay, there may be something to this. And so yeah, I'll be presenting a lot of evidence showing, and a lot of scientific also background into this evidence as well, showing what I believe is going on here on this earth, and it's a lot stranger than what people think. So that's for sure.
Yeah. Jacques Vallée has said, maybe we don't even know what it is, and I agree with that. That's a very much a possibility. We're going into break here in about 3 minutes. But there was a question I think that came up that it made me think of something like, the question was, you have you video too, because that's what the person wanted to know. I mean, we just showed you showed everyone some still pictures, but you have a lot of video on this. I saw that in one of your movies. There's a movie up on Prime. You can rent it, and there's that you're in, and then on one that you don't have to rent. I believe, I can't remember the name of it, but on Amazon Prime you can see those movies.
That's correct. Yeah. We also have Fractured Realities on YouTube as well. And part 2 is just about to come out of that on that. Part 1 just went into, speaking to a lot of witnesses, going through some basic steps of my life, showing, a lot of footage and stuff like that, a lot of what I've seen and what others around have seen and experienced and stuff like that. UFO, presidents and investigators and stuff like that. So part 2 is going into more of what we're seeing in the sky, i.e. The different types of UAP, the different categories, the colors, the types, shapes, their characteristics, what they do. Some of them seem to have the same characteristics, like the spheres of light seem to follow and mimic movements of not just humans on the ground, but they also seem to mimic movements of planes, probably more so than any other type of UAP, except for the white UAP, which of course, as we know, has gone back to the Foo Fighter days, where they used to hang on the wingtips of the planes and follow the plane movements and stuff like that. But there's a case, actually Jacques Vallée and Chris Aubeck in their book Wonders in the Sky bought it a couple of years ago. When I purchased the book, I opened up on a page, started reading, and straight away there's the case of a gentleman, I think in the 15th century back in Germany, who walked into a town and had a red ball of light follow above his head, and when he'd look up, it would stop, and when he would stop, and when he would continue, it would continue following him. When he'd stop, it would stop. Exactly the same thing I saw when I was 9, but 500 years after this event in Germany, and that blew my mind. I thought, because I'd never heard of another case of that where it was similar to mine that I've been speaking about the last decade publicly, of one of these UFOs actually mimicking and following a human being. So it's really bizarre.
Yeah. 500 years is just a drop of time when it comes to the universe. But you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to go into break, and we'll be right back right after these messages. Hang in there.
Stand by, gentlemen. We're coming back in about 10 seconds. In 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Martin Willis, and my guest today is Damien Nott. And welcome back, Damian. That was quite a snappy tune. That's the first time I played that break tune there. But
I was getting into it.
Yeah. So someone wanted to ask, the last question in our chat was, do you have video? Now, you mentioned earlier that you have a website. Can people? Well, why don't you tell us what the website is? And
Sure.
Go ahead.
The website's actually been down now for a little while, so I'm working on a new one right now.
Okay. But once that gets up, will you have some of the videos on there?
Oh, absolutely. The videos, photographs, only the best of the best ones where, I've had witnesses with me who've seen them as well. So, I won't be putting up a lot of stuff that could be this or it could be that or whatever, little lights off in the distance or something like that. Only bona fide up close videos and photos of, or as up close as what you can get, right, to these things. But yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier you have I'm sorry, go ahead. You mentioned earlier that you had about 60 cameras, right? That's another question that came up, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And
58 now, 58 cameras. So.
That's plenty. Now, are there times when it's kind of like fishing in a way? If anyone's ever gone fishing, you wait in the boat sometimes for hours and hours and hours and no fish bites. Is that kind of what can happen? Like, are there many, many nights you'll be out there and there's nothing, but you just keep going back, and how does that work?
For me, I'm probably the laziest ufologist or sky watcher, whatever you want to call me. I've basically the times I've gone out, the times I've actively looked for UFOs, except for when I've gone to new areas or something like that. But when I've gone out into the backyard or gone out into the front yard looking for them, I never see them. I never see them when I'm actively just wanting to just go out and see them myself. The weird part of the weird, and I guess high strangers part of this, is the times that I see them are when, I'll be taking the rubbish bin out, not even thinking about them, and just look up at one spot in the sky and they'll be sitting right there. And then they'll just blink out or they'll take off really quick in one direction or something like that. And other times, it's before conferences, it's on the way to conferences, it's on my birthday. I've had them appear literally either 20 minutes before my birthday, 20 minutes after my birthday, or 10 minutes after my birthday at midnight when I'm literally just turning it, go another year on this earth kind of thing. And then they just appear in really strange times. But like I say, I'm lucky that I've had a lot of witnesses to most of the sightings I've had, especially over the last decade, which has been really good. So it makes me think I'm not as crazy as probably others probably think I am, or my cameras are crazy too, because my cameras are picking up this stuff as well. So I mean, it's that's why I tried also to get different cameras, and I have multiple cameras next to each other on rigs. So if I get the chance to get a rig and get it outside and set up, most of the time you see nothing anyway, so it's a waste of time. But when you do, and you've actively got all the cameras going at once, you can capture it on a thermal camera, you can capture it on an infrared, a modified full spectrum camera, a 4K camera, some other type of format camera, and so it rules out, if you're capturing the same phenomenon on the cameras, it rules out on multiple cameras, it rules out an anomaly on a single camera. So the skeptics can't say, oh, it was just a camera anomaly. Okay, well, how come the same anomaly is appearing on 5 different cameras of different models and makes and everything? And yeah, and they can't explain that. So that's evidence that's a lot easier to get through as evidence without it being smashed down by skeptics. So it helps when you have multiple bits of footage. So
yeah. And how do the skeptics treat you?
Oh, they're fine. They steer clear of me now. I was on a current affairs program here in Australia called Today Tonight with the president of the Australian Skeptics Association at the time, and he tried to, take me down a peg and rubbish my footage and all this kind of stuff, and then basically they got made out to look quite silly on the program, to the point where they actually edited part of the program and then put it up down in Melbourne, on Melbourne's Today Tonight, so to make them look less silly, because it was always the same excuses with skeptics. It's always, no, the distance of the universe is too vast, the time, the speed of light, and all this, blah blah blah, the stuff that they've been saying. There's no other planets out there that could hold life, and now slowly science has been changing this. We now know about exoplanets, possibility of them hosting life out there, and stuff on Earth. We're still finding 5 new species a day, stuff we thought couldn't exist, or life forms that live in battery acid. We're finding out things that yesterday we had no idea about, and said no, that's not possible. So for skeptics to rule out the distance factor and rule out this and that based on our own current understanding of physics is just a joke. So I know there's a lot more to physics. I know there's a lot more to dark matter. I know there's and what they postulate as being ulterior universes, ulterior dimensions around us, multi-dimensions, whatever. I'm sure that this all ties hand in hand with what we're seeing in our skies and experience the high strangeness stuff we're experiencing on the Earth here too. So I love the mystery part of it. It's quite amazing. It gets you hooked. Hook, line, and sinker.
I think the mystery is the big hook for most of us. I do think that you didn't actually mean battery acid. You mean like the acidic. I think it was in the desert where they found those microorganisms in like real acidic water or something, right?
Oh yeah, no, they've actually found that life can exist in battery acid now too. They've actually found the little microbes that were swimming around in battery acid.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. It's only fairly new, so that blew me away. I love finding out new stuff about things we didn't know, yesterday. So it's the same when people say, you can't convince someone that UFOs exist, right? And they can have an open mind, yeah, sure, but you can't say, and they can't believe 100% within themselves anyway that they exist, and I know, and blah blah blah. And how you can't know unless you see. And then even when you see, and you see multiple times, you still, most of the time, you don't really know what you're seeing. It's just you're seeing it constantly. You're seeing their characteristics and what they're doing, but other than that, can't really glean much more information from sightings or what we're seeing. So all I can really do is video and photograph it and use and have that as evidence of some type that, hey, don't know what it is, but hey, it's really strange, and it could be some type of natural earth anomaly that we know nothing about, hence the Paranatural enigma of this whole situation. Of my book that's coming out is called A Paranatural Enigma as well, so that'll be out within the next 6 months too. So yeah, I try and touch on as deep as I can in the book and in the next couple of documentaries coming out. So
yeah, I mean, some of it, go ahead. Yeah,
just to give people put it in and they can look at the evidence, they can postulate and say, okay, well that may be, that's and so I'm just putting it out there, and people can say, okay, whatever. You can say, yeah, I believe it or not. It doesn't matter. It's just designed to make people think about the phenomenon, what it could possibly be, other than aliens coming from Mars or Venus. So yeah,
or maybe that's even part of it or not part of it. But the places in this country that you hear a lot about. You said the Marfa Lights. Also, there's Brown Mountain. That people are seeing a lot of, UFOs there, orbs and things like that. So there are places, and that's a high concentration of copper in that area. And there's places, I know you're probably very familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. There's just these odd places in the world where things happen, and it's possible, as you just mentioned a second ago, that some of these may have a natural a natural occurrence of something we just don't understand at this point. So
Possibly,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, and it could be, but when it gets into the really weird stuff, like Bigfoot and the things like you were mentioning that your father saw, slide behind you and things like that. That who knows what the if something's actually happening, what the heck, those type of things you can't even wrap your brain around what
That's
those
right,
things
yeah.
might be.
Exactly. And that's why I'm postulating that they may be coming from the same place as the UFOs. I mean, and another thing, or another dimension, or whatever the case is, and every now and then they're seen in our dimension. A lot of what I've looked into shows that the similarities between a phenomenal. I mean, both of the phenomenon, ghosts, whenever they're around, they affect animals greatly. Animals go crazy, seemingly. Same as UFOs. Animals seem to go, especially dogs and cows and everything, seem to go. It's like they sense there's a predator around or something. It's more, they do more than just bark sometimes. I think my old dog, Gruffy, he got so used to them. A couple of times I caught him in the backyard here a decade ago. Like, he was seeing heaps, probably more than most humans I know. And one night I woke up and saw him staring up at a white light that was about maybe 30 feet above our backyard, and he's just sitting there staring at it. And I'm there calling him from the back window, Ruff, come inside, get inside, and yelling, and he would nothing. The light blinked out, and then all of a sudden he barked a couple of times up at the sky, turned around, looked at me, and it was like he was out of some spell or something. It was really, really weird. But other times, animals just seem to go absolutely crazy when UFOs.
And have you actually
when they come down low over town, Yeah.
So you've actually witnessed the animal reactions besides your dog?
Oh, absolutely, a few times. Yeah. We've seen balls of light glide silently over the tops of rooftops, so low that they were actually illuminating the rooftop as the tiles on the roof as it was going. We watched this, and then it went behind a tree, and it was half the size of the home that we were watching, and right up in the backyard here, and it was headed towards these cattle that were outside of town. They were there for an auction, and the dogs and the animals were going crazy. But then when it got to the area where the cattle were, the cattle started going crazy. The cattle were banging against the metal fences, and just for a good 15 minutes, the cattle just went absolutely nuts. And I know that there wasn't any, cattle mutilations the next day, as far as I know, but, I witnessed this with my own eyes. Sorry, a lot of people in the town have seen them. But yeah, most people do keep it to themselves, unfortunately. Like my auntie, for instance, she's out on the farm here just outside of town, a big farm, 26,000 acres. And
Wow.
and she's seen lights over the property as well. And then when I asked her a decade ago, have you seen any of these weird UFOs? She said, oh yeah, the lights. Yeah, we see them every now and then. And I'm like, oh, what? And then that's all, she didn't really care about it. She didn't mention it anymore. It was like, okay, she's just a hardcore country farmer woman. They don't make up stories like that, or she didn't care about it. It's just a phenomenon that she's witnessed, and sort of they brush it off, and just move along and keep working. And that's just the way they are. So
amazing. This question, how close have you been to orbs or UFOs? What's the closest, I guess I'll reframe that you have been actually to an object?
Okay, it wasn't an orb, but it was a shaft of light. It was a column of light, maybe about 5 to 6 feet long. It was hard to tell because it moved in quite fast. But it was about in diameter, about yay big, maybe about half a meter in diameter thereabouts. But it melted into the ground over my shoulder, and I was picking up a camera at the time. And this was in a hotspot area in a place called Tipperary, North New South Wales here. And I was there with an author, and I was there with another gentleman, another UFO investigator. And I set the camera up on the valley behind us, where in this small valley, there's a lot of activity and balls of light that just appear above trees and blink out, and all sorts of weird things happen in this area. It's only a small area too, very small. And so I set the camera up behind us, and we're talking, and then all of a sudden I've bent down to pick up a camera, and the second I've done that, this light has come up over my shoulder, flown into the ground. I could have stuck my finger out and it would have touched my finger. That's how close this light was to me. And it melted into the ground. No sound, no noise, no disturbance of the ground, anything like that whatsoever. And I was like, wow, okay. I jumped about 15 feet that way, and Mike jumped about 10 feet backwards. And we were just like, whoa, okay, that was pretty bizarre. So I've had them probably about that far away from me. That was the closest anomalous light, I guess you could say. But the funny thing is the following morning, when we got back home and everything, and I went through the footage from the night before, and sure enough, I've captured 13 other lights, the same column shafts of light, whatever they were, that are flying, changing direction and everything, and flying into the ground, no noise, behind our backs, while this thing flew into the ground next to my arm. So we captured 13 at the same time. While the Earth's magnetic field was being affected, you can hear the EMF trifield meters going absolutely crazy in the background while this is happening. And people saying, hey, the meters are going crazy, what's going on, and blah, blah, blah. And then they saw the light. But on other occasions, like I've had, when I was 9, I had one about maybe 15 feet above my head, maybe 20. I've had a purple one, 2 years ago above my tree, just outside my office. And it just appeared out of nowhere, bobbed up and down, like really silently for a second, had like a white, it's hard to explain, but a purpley white exterior, and it was radiating out to a darker purple exterior around the outside of it. And then it just blinked out and was gone after giving off this bright flash. And yeah, that's probably about. Oh, and one other time in where was I? Had a light follow another red light in Taree, in Top Ryde, about maybe 13 years ago, and it was at midnight, and I was trying to get down to the service station before the service station closed to get some milk or something for the next morning for coffee. And then and I saw this thing above me, and I got a photograph of that thing as well, and then a little bit of film before it zipped away. But yeah, that was probably about 10 feet away from me. It's quite close. But yeah,
Amazing.
they don't talk to me,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't know why. What's the reason or motive or mission or whatever? Sometimes it does your head in trying to work it out, you know.
Yeah. One of the questions I had, and it looks like someone is also asking a similar question. Do you ever, now this is an interesting question, but do you ever detect any sounds on any of these? And someone wanted to know also any odor, which is an unusual question.
Actually, the odor one is it's a good one, because that's part of the things I'm going into in Haunted Skies as well. A lot of witness reports speak about strange odors almost like of sulfur, and I've smelt that only once in my life, and that was inside a home. I haven't actually smelt it coming from a UFO, but I have had reports of others who've smelt the same or a similar kind of sulfur smell coming from UFOs. I've smelt like a kind of like an eggy kind of smell once, and that was when the thing flew into the ground next to my arm, and the electrical thing or whatever it was, plasma shaft thing. I don't know what to call them, but yeah, I did smell some sort of weird smell for a few seconds, and then it just sort of dissipated. It was gone. So yeah, a lot of people have reported with poltergeist activity and other strange activity in their homes to the sulfur smell. And so yeah, there are a few, you know, that is a bit of a connection, but it doesn't happen with all cases or anything. It could be whatever is powering them or whatever energy they're giving off. It may be interacting with our oxygen, maybe ionizing the air around it, causing the smell. Who knows really? It's you know, it's a mystery still. I wish I could tell you an answer 100%, but yeah, unfortunately I don't have it. But there are reports of it happening, so all throughout history.
And what about sound? Any of these things that you've ever filmed, do you ever hear any sound from any of them? Buzzing or anything?
I've heard buzzing once, and that was just a second or two before a UFO had appeared out of nowhere. And that was once. I've never been able to record a sound. I've got some high powered, sound recording equipment trying to capture the sounds of from these things, and nothing. Well, I haven't been lucky so far anyway. I mean, I've caught other strange sounds and things in the home, but never with the UFO stuff. And I've always had microphones pointed towards them and high powered things and everything, and no luck. But I know that they do give off sound. I know that there are reports of it. I know I've heard the sound myself, the metal whirring sound, very low. But yeah, that's quite rare too, the reports of sounds coming from, and most of the time they're silent. So
yeah, that was one of the most, I've said this many times on the show, but when I had my UFO sighting, the fact that it was making no noise at all and moving was one of the most baffling things to me. You mentioned just a minute ago that the meters were going crazy. So what are the meters you have? You're registering some activity there on meters?
Yeah, we have the good old school tri-field meters, and we'll have it on some, and we're registering like very large localized magnetic field changes. So only in certain areas, and areas near this mountain, also where there's a lot of activity happening seemingly in the mountain or between the mountain and here. There's a small river. It's very small though, so. But I know I've got film and footage of, and I've had witnesses as well after a talk in Kiama down south here in New South Wales, where we went to a beach. I had a talk in an hour. So, we went to the beach and in between the talks. And sure enough, myself and Lorraine Cilio, who's the president of Campbelltown UFO Research Organisation here, we're just looking out, and all of a sudden this big ball of lights come across, undulating as well, across the top of the water, came towards us, and then another one came past it, smaller ball of plasma or whatever you want to call it, and then the bigger one, smaller one disappeared, and then the bigger one has flown right out across the ocean top, right out to the horizon almost, in a fraction of and it's on the video, and it's a fraction of about 5 seconds, if that. It's right next to an oil tanker, out on the ocean, and then it's hovering there, and then the next second it just goes into the ocean at an angle like this, without splashing any water, without any interference, physical interference on the surroundings. Absolutely incredible, and just gone. The UFO is gone. And this has been reported as well all around the world. The UFOs in the ocean, in the mountains, flying into mountains. That's part of the mystery that really gets me. I don't really care so much anymore about who they are or what they are. I just want to know, like, what is it in regards to the inside of our Earth or underneath our oceans? Why are they going into there for? Like, that's where I'm at the moment. It's kind of doing my head in. I want to find out. Are they living there? Are there underground bases? Are there, what's happening? I want to get a submarine and go and check it out, but I don't have one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's so much room under there. They could certainly hide if that's what whatever they are, if that's what they're doing. Someone wants to know, do the orbs ever respond to you or your thoughts? This is going back to the orbs.
The orbs of light? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like to say this, but a few times, maybe 4 or 5 times in my whole life, out of all my sightings, I've put thoughts across there or whatever, and just to see, because a lot of people would say, "Oh, have you done this? Have you tried this or whatever?" And like, no, that's not the way it works. But I've tried it, and on 4 or 5 occasions, I don't know if it's a coincidence or whatever, but they've changed direction, or that they've grown larger, and flashed a bright flash from the sky or stuff like that. So out of all the sightings I've had, it's only happened, 4 or 5 times where, so I can't say that, oh yeah, 100%, because out of a couple hundred sightings, 4 or 5 times isn't enough to say that, oh yeah, that's definite. Yes. So, it's, but it did happen in front of Sun Herald reporters that I had in the backyard here, and they came into town, and they saw UFOs come over. But before that, Mariana Flynn said to me, "Oh, can you get your friends to come?" And I was like, "Oh, no stress or anything." And like as if I got them on a rope, I can pull them down or something like that, you know. And I was like, "Yeah, all right." But I tried, and I thought I just sat there and I was silent. We had the reporters over here, ran in the yard for like 5 minutes, and then I thought, and within 5 seconds, over the house, two balls of light, white balls of light, are playing a game of tag across the sky and go right over the house. And the reporters see it. The UFO president lady saw it. They were all just blown away. They didn't know what to do. They just stared at these two things playing a game of tag across the sky, changing speed, catching up to each other. Then the one in front would speed ahead, then the other one would speed up. And this happened for about 3 minutes across the sky, and they were just playing this slow game of tag. It was just, couldn't have asked for anything more in front of these reporters at the time that they're at a house talking about a guy who's seen UFOs in town, and then two come over the house. It was just luck or coincidence, or sometimes it doesn't feel like that. You know, sometimes it feels like it's almost preordained, or there's something more to this than what meets the eye, than just maybe, you know, maybe there's more to it than just luck with my captures. You know, I don't know. I really don't. So.
Yeah, interesting. Have you seen? This is a question. This person wanted to know: have you seen the USS Omaha video recently that's out there, where the UFO / USO, it appears to like go into the ocean, no splash or anything apparently, but the question is, have you actually seen the video that's floating around on the internet now?
Actually, I did see a screenshot of it, I think. I haven't actually watched the video yet, though, so I'm going to have a look at it and check it out later. But yeah, it's good if they've got footage of that happening. I'm sure it'd show the same thing as what mine captured. They don't seem to affect the physical surrounds. So you dive into water, no splash, no effect on the water whatsoever. They can dive in and land, similar effect. So yeah, it's good that they're releasing some footage. Yeah, it is.
Well, this is another Jeremy Corbell released video, and this is also another iPhone capture of a screen. So that's what these have been iPhone captures that he's releasing. It makes me really wonder the source of these things. So of course, I haven't spoken to
myself.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not sure. But it is really interesting, and there is a lot of talk now out there about, you know, the different mediums that these things seem to be able to go through without any changes. It is really interesting. And as far as have you filmed there are no drones out there, right? I mean, this is really bizarre. You don't see any drones out your way anyway, because you said you're in kind of a low populated area, but are there any military bases anywhere near you?
North of us here, they're about 2 hours away. About 3 hour drive away. There's a military base, and it's up at Newcastle. Maybe 3.5 hours, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty far north. That's the closest one. And then they fly every now and then. They'll fly their jets across Dunedoo here, and they'll head out to a place called Dubbo, and then come back again. And you know, so yeah, the area is a military fly area, but the funny thing is you hardly ever see them. Most of the times that we see military craft come over here is when there's a UFO in the area, and we've actually got them on film going around and around town here while there's like flashing lights appearing behind them, trailing the aircraft, these UFOs that we call flasher type UFOs. Normally they're seen higher up in the sky, and they give off a really bright flash, and then they'll move over here, give off a bright flash over here, and then sort of stick around the same spot. Some of them move and change direction while they're flashing and doing all sorts of really bizarre things in the sky. But between the flashes, most of the time they're actually invisible. So we're seeing a lot of that type of strange UAP activity. I've seen it for, I think about 15 years myself, but I haven't been capturing them until the last decade. So that's another phenomenon also that seems to be linked to the UAP phenomenon, whatever that is. They seem to be some sort of invisible protectors in the sky, because I've been filming other UFOs, and these flashing objects will intercept these other like UFOs actually moving through our sky. And in between the flashes, daytime, nighttime, it doesn't matter. They're up there. And we've got footage of them during both daytime and nighttime, showing something hovering above buildings in the city, giving off bright flashes and then disappearing. You know, there's no link between the flashes. There's no timing between the flashes. They're quite random. And also the fact that some of the flashes are quite large and quite bright. Some of them are quite small and fast. Some of them change color to a different color, an orangey or a red color when they flash. They're really strange. So whatever they are, I know that and from what we saw with the military craft here, the two jets that came into town, what we saw, the military must know about them, because they're going around. While we had multiple ones in the sky that night that were seen by multiple people in the town here, even just hovering above telegraph poles. They come down that low sometimes. So it's really strange. The whole thing is really bizarre. So I think
Right.
they haven't told people because it probably freak a lot of people out, this truth, you know, or would have back in the day. Maybe nowadays, because of the internet and everything, and people are more open-minded to the phenomenon, maybe now we'll take it in a different way, but you know, we'll soon find out. I guess.
Yeah. Question: Have you ever had any discussions with any of the Aboriginal population about these things?
Yeah. I've discussed this with a couple of Aboriginal people, a couple of elders. There's actually a park here, a national park, about maybe 50 minutes drive north of here. And, you know, you go up into the mountains and everything, and there's a legend in this forest. It's a really ancient forest, you know, the ones with the massive trees, and they go up really, really high, and they, you know, it blocks out the sky, and there's a weird mist in the place. And it's kind of one of those eerie kind of, you know, rainforest kind of places. Anyway, going back, you know, thousands of years, there's actually a legend of the Pleiades star system written on a tablet when you go into this place, and it's the Aboriginal tribe that used to live there would speak of a Barayaka, which is like a sky god, a god in a ball of light that would come down and cruise across the treetops, and they speak about this. And one night, it used to be a thing for people in the tribe to go to the tops of these tall trees to climb up and to witness these lights or this god flying around. And one night there was several women that actually climbed up the tree, and the sky god took them, according to the Aboriginal legend, took them off, and they became the Pleiades star system, according to Aboriginal legend, which is pretty out there. There's a lot of you know, legend of the Pleiades and along similar lines around the Earth, which is pretty fascinating as well. But here in this place, you know, they added a bit of a funny bit to it, because one of the stars in the Pleiades star system isn't as bright as the other stars. The Aboriginals said that that's because the woman that was taken was not as pretty as the other woman, as the other women that were taken. So she wasn't as pretty.
Nice,
so her star didn't shine as bright. So it's pretty out there. But,
oh well,
you know,
but she had a good heart, though. Anyway, we have Joni from Pennsylvania on the line. Hi, Joni. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Joni, are you there? Hi there.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. You have a question for our guest tonight?
Yes, I do. How has COVID-19 and the wildfires in Australia affected the Bigfoot and UFO community expeditions there?
Oh yeah, everything's slowed right down. You know, I think if there's exhibitions, they've been on the phone or on a Zoom call or a conference call or whatever the case is. Yeah, but everything's, you know, because of not so much the fires as much now. I mean, they're mostly over. It's it's more the COVID has really affected everything, slowed everything right down. And you know, doing talks and you can't have certain amount of people in one room, and you know, all this stuff, and you got to socially distance and everything, 6 feet apart and everything. So yeah, it's been a bit hard to do any of that sort of stuff. So yeah, everything slowed right down, the whole paranormal field. So
Anything else, Joni?
Yes, I want to know, have there ever been any mass sightings in Australia of UFOs in the cities in the past few years?
Good question.
Been any sightings of mass sightings?
No, mass sightings. Well, a lot of people, a lot of witnesses. Yeah.
Not really. Nah, not really in Australia. I mean, there's been actually. I lie. I don't lie, but probably about 5 years ago, there was a kind of like a mass sighting where a gentleman from Randwick said that he spotted an object over Randwick Racecourse, and this was early in the morning, about 7:30 or something. And then, so from there, he called up the radio station, and the radio was talking about it, and people were then calling in saying, "I see it too, I see it too." And so I actually got my cameras out. I heard about this, and I looked outside, and there's this thing, and wow, I filmed it. I filmed it on about 17 different cameras. I think I went a bit overboard, but it stayed there in the one spot for ages. The wind was going and everything. Nothing was affecting this thing. And I got really close to it. We even had a black helicopter go right up to it, circle it underneath it, and then take off, and then hover over here for a while. And yeah, it was really, really bizarre. So a lot of people saw that one, but they tried to explain. I made the news and everything here, but they tried to explain it away as, what was it, the Google loon balloon that had come down low and was just sitting there and doing nothing. So apparently it was the Google loon balloon, but I don't believe that. I saw the Google loon balloon. I know that it's got a lot dangling from the underside of it, and there was nothing there. And the fact that, I know balloons. I've filmed them for years, and I've seen them for years. We know that a little bit of wind will bring them over this way or take them that way or whatever. But this thing just stayed perfectly still for at least, an hour and a half to allow us to film it. So, and you've seen that there's wind everywhere in the video, and the trees are going everywhere, but this thing perfectly still. So I don't know of any physics bending Google loon balloon that can do that myself. So.
Excellent. Well, Joni, thanks so much.
Okay. Same to you. Have
All
a
right.
good day.
Thank you. All right, we have Scott calling from Massachusetts. By the way, the number, if you're listening, is 855-472-5483. Bill is standing by. Scott, welcome to the show.
How are you, Martin?
I'm doing well. Thank you. You have a question for our guest tonight?
Yeah, Damian, how are you? This is Scott Brown.
Hey, Scott, how's it going?
How are you? Hey,
Not too bad.
I was wondering, I'm currently using a Psionics color night vision camera for the work that I'm doing during the night shots.
Sure.
And I was wondering, what is your favorite equipment for daytime, nighttime?
Well, I use something quite simple. It's easy. My favorite camera for shooting daytime is a Panasonic HC VX870M camera, and I love that. I mean, it's 4K. It's not the best quality 4K, but it's decent. But the good thing I like about it, it's got old school night vision in it, like the old school Sony night vision. So you can actually attach a infrared R72 Kenko lens, just say, on top of the night vision, turn it on during the daytime, and you can actually film invisible type UFOs with this particular camera during the daytime, and also nighttime as well. It's got a manual jog wheel as well, which helps, and you can pick them up now for $400, $450, $500. When it came out a few years back, it was $890 or $900 or something. But a lot of people ask me, and I just say, look, keep it simple. The Panasonic camera is quite simple to use, easy. You can modify it, the whole kit. But nighttime, I like to use a what's called an iGen 2020 camera, which is really good because it's got a decent picture quality. You can adjust the colors in it as well, make it multiple different colors, not just green or white. You can make it all different colors. You can also, it's got the manual adjustments. It's got also, the best part is the external video recording capabilities, where you can actually record it to an external video unit, which increases the quality of the photo or video you're trying to get. The only problem with the iGen 2020 is it has a built-in SD card recorder, but it doesn't record video. It only records photograph. So you've got to get an external little recording unit, and you can record the video to the external unit. And that's the cheapest, best for the price unit that I recommend to anybody. So for nighttime.
All right, great.
footage. So
Well, I'm glad you're still out there hunting.
I don't hunt them. Like, I've had more luck just kind of ignoring them myself. But yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
All right. Hey,
All right,
thanks
well,
for the call, Scott. All
Thanks,
right.
Scott.
So, all right. Next, we have Brett from Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Hey, thank you.
Hi.
I got
You have a question for our guest?
Yeah, I do. A couple of questions here. First, how's the Yowie doing these days? I'm sorry. I had to get,
That's all right. I don't know. How's the Bigfoot going nowadays?
Yeah, he's doing pretty good. He's getting some shows. But I wanted to ask you, I have some friends that are, what you would call ghost hunters, and it's kind of like this digital analog question that I'm just curious about. If you use film cameras alongside with your digital gear, and if so, if you have find more results with film compared to digital, or vice versa.
Actually, I don't use video cameras anymore. I've used them in the past. I've had them on the tripods next to the digitals, and actually, I had no more luck with the film than I'm getting with the digital recordings that I'm doing with the digital cameras. So, yeah, I mean, some people, have had some luck with the film type cameras still. And I like old school film cameras as well. It's just digital is just so much easier to use, and I've never had luck. It's like with when people ask me about the CE5s, have you had much luck with that? No, I haven't, unfortunately. Like, out of several that I've attempted, I've only seen something a couple of times, and that's when I took off away from the group. So yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's different for different people. So.
Yeah, I got one last question. First off, I'll have to watch some of your other documentaries. Australien Skies was a great piece of work. Were you always interested in documentary filmmaking, or was it like your passion or quest for the unknown that made you want to push this out into the public eye more so, that pushed you into the documentary filmmaking?
Yeah, it's basically because I wanted to tell my story on my grounds, and not on some other documentary maker's grounds. I wanted to, because it's like with Hollywood and Hollywood studios when they do true stories, right? They always add something like a love story, or they add some extra just rubbish to make it, more palpable for more audiences or whatever. But me, I just wanted to tell the story the way it is, the way that it comes from myself, from my heart, my memory and everything like that, and not have it changed by someone else. So that's why I thought, hey, it's the best thing. If you're going to say something, it's best to say it yourself in life, not have someone else say it for you or change what you're saying or whatever the case is. So I had a couple of bad sort of run-ins where that happened in the beginning, and I just thought, okay, well, now I'm going to start doing it myself. And, then I can just sort of get past that whole people trying to blow it out of the water and trying to, in a way, like when people make all these stuff up that you didn't say, or try and extenuate what you did say, just to make it more, or get more people to watch, or whatever the case is, which a lot of people do. Like in conferences here in Australia, they'll call me like stupid things like UFO magnet or whatever. It's just to get people to come, or get people to come to the talk or whatever. It's ridiculous, but it's just the way it is. Same with Hollywood, and same with everything else. So I just want to do it myself, do it just the way it is, speak from the heart, and that's my direction with this anyway, with going into the filmmaking side of it more so.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
No worries, man. No worries.
Hey, Brett. Thanks for the call. So the lines are all right, thanks. All right, the lines are open, and let's see. Looks like I'm getting a call from someone that I think she's trying to call. She's from Australia. I'll try to talk to her on how to dial the show number. But anyway, what I want to ask you is the question that people must ask you a lot, and that is why why are people? Why are UFOs attracted to you? You just said UFO magnet well, I can sort of understand that and where that comes from. But why do you think that is?
I wish I had an answer. And look, I think I've always put it down to it's because I look up probably more than most people do, right? And the more you look up, the better chance you have of seeing something at the end of the day. So most people I know for a fact don't even bother looking up at the sky. Maybe once a blue moon, they'll look up at the sun or something, or the moon or whatever. And the rest of the time they're on the video games, they're at work, or they're whatever, living life, right? Most people don't even look up. So I'm probably a little bit luckier than most because I do bother to look up because I've had, this has been throughout my whole life since I was a kid. So it's all I know is that these things are around. And so every now and then, yeah, I do look up probably more than most. And that's probably why I see more than most people. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot of people can go their entire life and never see not even one. So, and then it's just happening over and over. I mean, and it's not just exactly the place you live. I mean, you go to other places and you see them, or people see them around you. I mean, do you ever think there's, I'm not trying to create any type of conspiracy, but I mean, do people, other people also question, is there something about you that makes you able to see these things where, again, someone can go their entire life and not see one single thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I do get asked that question quite a fair amount. Yeah. Look, I wish I could say, hey, yeah, I'm special or something like that, but I can't say that. As far as I know, I'm just a normal person. My life has been sort of, up and down and weird since I was a little kid. I had a mother who was a bit out there and a bit whatever, and my life is probably not as normal as most people's. So I've looked into that. I've thought, is it got something to do with my upbringing? But no, a lot of people have bad upbringings and they don't go and see UFOs their whole life, and so it's like, okay, they've ruled that out. Family history is a family history. The first Knott, my line on my father's side of the family was a Viking king called King Knott, who invaded England 1,000 years ago, became king of England, and that he was the first of my family line of Knotts. So I mean, I've looked into that. Is it because of my family line? Is that why I'm now 1,000 years later seeing UFOs, or do they follow certain lineages or throughout history, certain people? That's what it does seem like. It does seem like that they are following certain individuals, but why would it skip 1,000 years of generations of this one family line and then just all of a sudden hit one person and smack him in the face 1,000 years later? It doesn't make much sense. But who knows really? None of the phenomenon really makes much sense anyway. So the more that you look into it, the more answers that the phenomenon actually does throw at you, which is unlike anything else in the world. The more you look, if you're a plumber or you're a carpenter or whatever, the more you do your job and the more you find out about it, the more you know. But the more you find out about the UFO phenomenon, the less you actually do know. If you're honest to yourself and honest to people around you, the less you do actually know, because it is quite strange in multiple different ways. And a lot of people who speak about the UFO phenomenon and ghost phenomenon and stuff like that, they've never actually even experienced it. They've got an interest in it, or they've heard stories about it, or whatever the case is, but most of them haven't seen it themselves. So I think coming from someone like myself who's researched it, and all the cases and everything about it for 33 years and actually seen the phenomenon at the same time, that'd probably be a bit more helpful on my end with what I'm doing with the documentaries, with what I'm talking about with the UFO phenomenon and everything. That's kind of helped me out a lot more than just say someone who's seen something in the sky a couple of times or whatever, and and starts postulating or questioning what it is. And a lot of people who do that, who just see maybe one or two sightings, a lot of them seem to go over the deep end. And I've had people who actually think that they're Jesus, and other people who think that they're Satan, and other people who think that they're special. And I even know a cult leader who saw a UFO and thinks now that he's like Jesus. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I know how it affects people. I know, but me, I'm lucky because I've had a grounding. I've seen them since I was a young kid. So they've become part of my life. So it's not something I've seen at a later age. And then my ego was huge and massive later on. And then, it's something I don't think I could ever get a huge ego from what I've seen and experienced, because some of it's been terrifying. Some of it's been, wow, amazing and everything. And it's been great proving it to people around me who've seen it as well. That's been excellent, because growing up as a kid, I couldn't talk to anybody about this. Friends, family, people would think you're nuts. Whenever I would talk to somebody about it, they think you're crazy or whatever. And you can't get past that stigma. And that's why I say to everyone, you have to see it to believe it. Like the old saying goes, you have to see it to believe it. So.
Well, let's talk about what was terrifying. What type of sighting was terrifying to you?
I had a sighting 2 years ago, and it's why I'm up here now, actually. I got quite unwell after it. I started having seizures. It was a close-up sighting. I think I mentioned it before, a purple ball of light above the tree.
Yes.
And it gave off like a bright white flash. I held up my arm in front of my face. I had my dog next to me and everything. My dog started having seizures within a few days as well. So my dogs had seizures. I started having the same seizures. During one of the seizures, I fell over and broke my back in 3 places. So I was laid. So I had to leave the UFO field at that stage and just kind of concentrate on getting healthy and all that stuff. But they found out that after this encounter with this light, it only lasted a very small amount of time. Then it disappeared. But the following day, I started developing a red mark down my left arm where I held it up in front of my face. And within about a week and a half, it started developing into blisters. And the blisters were like these green blisters, very bizarre looking things. And daily I'd take photos of it or film it, or whoever was around me will see it. And it got pretty full on. That's what I'll say that. But they found out also that I have a rare bone disease called HO, hypophosphatemic osteomalacia, which can be caused by multiple exposures to radiation. So, yeah, and they asked me, what type of work do you do where you work around radiation? And I couldn't answer and say, I chase UFOs or I hunt them or I'm a well-known whatever UFO magnet. They would have thought I was absolutely insane. Obviously, I've had bad reactions from a doctor in the past from migraines I used to get after a close-up contact with one time. And I went to see him, for some migraine medication. I had this thing for 3 days. I couldn't get rid of it. And surely enough, he said, what do you think caused it? And I said, well, it was a bright light, and that I saw. And so he started typing out on his computer, and then printed out this thing and handed it to me. He said, before I help you with your migraine, you need to go down and see these people. And it was for a mental health assessment team. Yeah. And so he wouldn't help me with a headache because I was honest and said I saw a ball of light. And I just want to see his reaction from it, like to see if he believed me or whatever. But no, it's just most doctors still so much of a stigma attached to it, even to this day. So
right. I want to grab this call real quick because she's calling from down your way. She's been on this show before. Irene, welcome to the show, Irene. We only have a couple minutes left. Sorry, Irene. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Oh, yes. Here we go.
Do you have a question for our guest?
Yes. I just wanted to say hello and thank you for coming on the show. Look, fellow Australian, very proud of you. Keep up the good work. Thank you for taking this very seriously and doing it very thoroughly. I just wanted to also just put in quickly, the Westall incident and the Gosford incident are a couple of mass sightings. I don't know if you're aware of the Westall incident of 66. So just for the other viewer that was asking, or the listener that was asking if there have been any mass sightings in Australia.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Also,
and there was Gosford as well. Gosford, there was a mass UFO sighting too. Yeah, coming out, I think the reservoir, wasn't it, in relation to drawing up water? That's quite a fascinating incident. That more was sucking up the water. Yeah.
Irene, while you're on, just a quick second. I saw something on the news floating around yesterday about something new about Westall. Did something happen? Someone come forward or something?
There's little. It was. I think the cameraman was uncovered. One of the cameramen that was.
That's right.
The news has been located. So Shane Ryan's got information on that. So I
Excellent.
don't have much more than that, really. But just coming
Yeah,
back
well-
to Damien, with everything that's coming out with well, just yesterday CBS covered this UFO business with the Navy pilots quite seriously. I'm wondering if it might be the time to revisit someone about testing you and your medical issues, and finding I guess a UFO friendly researcher or scientist to examine you, because you seem to be a very interesting subject for the phenomena itself that keeps appearing around you and following you, causing bodily changes on you. I think you should be studied. What do you think
All
of
right,
that?
Irene, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut this short. We just have, we're allowed one more minute. So we only have 1 minute, Damien, if you can wrap that up. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I've had Harvard Medical School contact me. Apparently, they found that in people for a study, and apparently they found in people like me who see multiple UFOs over a lifetime, that during MRI tests or MRI scans, they found that part of our brains are lit up that are not lit up in, I guess, normal people's brains for some reason. And to be in this study, you had to have over 15 sightings, have witnesses to all those sightings, have video and photo evidence of those sightings, and some sort of physical evidence of some sort of physical contact with whatever these things are. So,
well, I'm so sorry, but we have to cut. Yeah, we have to cut it short. But Damian, I'm really sorry that we have to stop right now. But thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
You're more than welcome.
All
Thank
right.
you for having me on the show, and thank you for your audience. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
You bet. Take care. Take care. Good luck with all the films and
Likewise.
everything. All right. So next week we have a really interesting show. We have Jack Bushong. He has not been on any show. He was a FAA involved person with a UFO sighting. He's going to be on, and also Ian Rogers from up in Canada. Thank you, everyone. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky. We'll see you next week.